I'm assuming everybody's here because you've solved all of the identity problems in your organizations. There's no provisioning issues, single sign-on issues, figured out this cloud thing, and you're looking for your next challenge. And right, the security operations people have always kind of sat on the same floor and done cool stuff, and most of the identity teams haven't ever really talked to them before, so maybe it's time to reach out. And by the smiles in the room, I know that you all know I'm lying. So I'm Matt Topper, president of UBERETHER. If you have seen those 3 terrorists running around the resort, I take no claim to them, but they have had a heck of a good time. So let's go back. Let's think back really, really hard. The year was 2017. We didn't have this crazy thing called the pandemic. We didn't really know where we were going for the cloud yet. We were still at Cloud Identity Summit, right? This new thing called the Identiverse wasn't real yet. ID Pro was just announced. Crazy where we've come in 5 years with that organization, right? Take your certification exams, please. I missed it because of this guy. He turned 5 on Tuesday of this week. So that was a big reason they were out here with me. But these are the stats that scare the crap out of me standing here in 2022. Cloud adoption, 19%. 1 in 5 organizations had adopted the cloud. Most of that adoption was, we're going to put this website out there that doesn't do anything, right? No data. We're just going to put something static. We're scared. We're risky. 13% of organizations trusted their data in public clouds. This is my favorite. 49% of businesses delaying deployments because of the cybersecurity skills gap. Thank goodness we've solved this one. And in just 5 years, 96% of businesses are using public clouds. 79% are using multiple. I believe the last stat I saw was over 50% are using 3 or more, and that's not if we're counting the baloney on-premise private cloud that everyone's VMware cluster seems to be called today. Sorry, VMware's awesome. I'm not digging them, but we're funny as businesses with businesses. Only 15% of organizations, 15%, plan to keep their most critical PII and PHI data on premises. Most importantly, that we should all be aware of, 19% are keeping their corporate finance data. So we see where business priorities lie. Keep your corporate finance data safer than your PII and PHI data. Interesting. And as I said, we have solved the cybersecurity skills challenge problem. That 49%, we've worked our butts off the last 5 years, and can I do math today? 10 times more cybersecurity job openings, and one of my team members who's doing recruiting for us said I should wear a shirt this week that says, like, we're hiring, and I was like, so is everybody else. That'd be the biggest joke at the place. And we've all heard the, right, identity is the new perimeter. It's the first pillar of zero trust. Thank you, Ross, for the most simplified graphic of zero trust with only 5 pillars and not up to, I think I've seen up to 12. Identity is the first and last thread in cybersecurity, right? As we've moved to the cloud, all of those traditional firewalls, gone, right? CASBs, we went that path real fast, and then we quickly got reminded, oh yeah, all those same problems we had with VPNs coming in are the same problems going out with our CASBs. So all of us in identity are left holding the bag, right? Those traditional layer 3, layer 4 network security pieces are gone. And really the only thing left to solve many of the security problems are the things the people in this room passionately do every day. At the same time, there's a new trend emerging. Gone are the days. Does everyone remember Oracle Identity Manager? I worked for Oracle. I was not on the product side. I was on the implementation side. I have the same scars. I'm sorry. But in reality, right, for a lot of years, we tried to do direct provisioning to target applications and tried to do that synchronization with, right, all of the IGA vendors are so proud of their 150,000 plus connectors that change every time you do a patch update and break and you delay. Like, what a shitty world we still live in. But the groundwork has been long set. And when I started building these slides, I was really, really hopeful. And then it all got killed. So, right? Yes, it started. So this is the first video that got me into identity. If anyone remembers Dick Hart's Identity 2.0 when he started up Skip, it's a great video to go back to. Right? Look at the year on that presentation. I was not there. Ross, I bet you were for sure, though, right? SAML Basics, 2002. How many enterprise applications in the last 5 years, we'll pick that date, still don't support SAML? We're using shitty reverse proxies with headers. That's kind of scary, right? Kim Cameron's laws of identity. I'm going to blow through it, but go back to these 7 and see how many we've actually done a great job with 15 years later, right? The groundwork set by people like Pam and her Internal Optimist blog, which is where I pulled one of the next slides from, and many of the things she talked about 15 years ago are the same things that are headlining this week's conference. So, and the new Trailblazers, because we had to put the silly Viking helmets in from a couple weeks ago at EIC. No other reason. But they're pretty good at setting the new standards and driving us forward. So this is the article I pulled from Pam, 2008, when she wrote about basically a plea to all of our enterprise application vendors, right? And this was still when it was all deployed on premises, of stop managing identities locally, start standardizing on the interfaces, right? You don't want to be in that dirty business. But I think 15 years later, our developers are all there. You look at the developers building things on Kubernetes and all happy about the 45,000 icons on the Cloud Native Computing Foundation's dashboard and all the cool stuff that they can do with it. They still don't want to do identity, and they've realized it's a nightmare. And the good news with that is we've got all the standards in place. We've got the pieces in place to fix this today. So we've got a choice. We can either throw up the red flag, we can run away screaming. But the problem today with all of our security operations are the point solutions have killed us. On average, 70 different security vendors to protect our organizations. Let's just play that half of them connected to each other and talk to each other. I know what it takes to manage a SAML federation between 70 different organizations. I'd hate to see what it takes to do that between security vendor products that don't have standardized APIs and interfaces to do it. And most of the world I see today in professional enterprises, this bottom half of the picture is what security operations looks like, right? We do all this great work in identity and access management. We have all of the business context data of who these people are, what these applications are, what their relationships to our business are, right? What contracts they're on. Should they even have privileged accounts if they're on that contract? Or are they just an external help desk admin organization or a third-party provider that's using our administrative interfaces? Sorry, John. But then all that data just gets piped into a SIM. And it's probably Splunk or ArcSight or QRadar. And most of those things go, what's running on this box? What are the logs from this thing? They don't look at it from an identity perspective. They don't look at it from where the person logged in, where the device's session initiated for the day, what API started that entire call transfer. So when we have a breach, when something looks weird, they're trying to reverse out and come backwards. Very few organizations that I've seen have gotten to a point of user behavior analytics where you're able to track, this is where the session started. This is all the websites they went to. This is what they SSH'd into after they went to our privileged access management tool, and then sudoed into root, and then start immediately SSHing over to other boxes, hoping they don't know who started that root session, because they know trailing that all the way back, whether you're malicious or not, is a pain in the butt. Justin Richer and I were joking, right? We were the developer nerds in our organizations that knew where all the API endpoints were and just started using them because they were there to get our jobs done faster. Those that saw his presentation earlier in the week, right? Developers just want to get their jobs done. They just want to get it done quick. And they're going to use what's available to them. They don't care to sign up for an API key. If they've got one, they're just going to reuse it. Most of our orgs, we don't have that visibility, right? We can't see the lateral movement. When we have alerts, I don't know if anyone's walked into the awesome SOC rooms with the thousands of TVs around and the weather and the world pew-pew maps flying all over the place, right? They get thousands and thousands of alerts a day. They can't look at it and go, oh, that's why that thing is happening, because they don't have our identity business context. They don't know what those people's relationships are. And we have to help them fix that. So the rest of this talk will be about some of the ways we've started to do that with our customers, as well as, honestly, it's not real hard for anyone else to do it either. So we've got a choice. We can run away screaming, or we can all come together and figure this out. So one thing I want to challenge everyone, can we please kill the zero trust word? We just call it defined trust, because that's really what we're getting to, right? It's understanding in our organizations as we grow things out, and darn it, this is Keynote, so animations, I have to click through everyone, and this was supposed to just do this on its own. But, right, every single place, these orange, oh, I cheated. See, I forgot where I ended. We'll just play like I did it right, okay? But, and I've hit buttons. Look, I'm done hitting. See, I quit hitting buttons like 30 seconds ago, and it was still going. Anyways, anywhere you see a box or an icon, and now it's running on its own. I love it. Anywhere these boxes are coming up, it's a point that there's trust in our organizations, right? And just think about most of our organizations, just the Java key store. How many of our organizations can we honestly say we know what CAs and what endpoints are trusted in every single one of our Java key stores? Take that times every platform, every vendor product, the operating system, the application server, the embedded shitty key stores that the vendors put into their products because they don't want to use the ones that ship with the platform that you find out after the fact are being managed somewhere on the side, right? Our problem today isn't zero trust. It's because we haven't defined it and looked across our organizations to simplify the places we trust, right? You look at things like GitHub in the last 9 months since Michael Hanley went over there. There's a different slide I was thinking was next, but, right? We look at the Open Software Foundation, we look at the SALSA frameworks, we look at what GitHub has done. They're getting rid of SSH keys, right? They're coming back and saying, we're not doing SSH keys. We're gonna say, you define an OIDC endpoint, and when you go to check in code, we want you to authenticate against that, and then generate a short-lived ephemeral token to let you check in that code, right? Because they realize that's just another trust point that has to be managed and maintained. The more we can think through all of these pieces to collapse our organizations down to less and less trust points, the easier that SOC job is gonna get. Because when that trust is compromised or considered maybe possibly broken, they know where to start, right? They know where that session was authenticated from, whether it was in a browser, on a desktop, or checking in code. And that's our challenge moving forward. And see, this is what I get for going backwards. So the next slide, when we're done checking off all the boxes, right, is what we should start thinking about as we build out our next generation of services, right? Every single resource in our organization, there's a decision that has to be made. And it's okay if that decision is there's no authentication on this. I love having the fight with organizations as to why the corporate lunch menu, and none of us go to an office anymore. This is a terrible example, right? But why is the lunch menu behind the firewall? Why do we have to authenticate as to, like, they're serving cheeseburgers again today, right? But it's just assumed in our organization that everything has to be protected. And, right, I do a lot of government work, and I've had people fight me to say, well, if they know what's on the lunch menu, they could think about what we're going to poison and come after us. And I've had this fight. And I will tell you the organization later, because Ross is looking at me like I'm crazy. And I said, yes. And they can also watch the Cisco truck pull out of the front gate every day when they drop off today's food. What's the difference? But this idea that everything has to be protected, questioning why, right? What is that policy? How can we get it out of the embedded applications? To me, we're moving towards a world of back to trust zones, kind of. And I'll kind of dig into that later. Every communication should be secured. Mutual TLS everywhere. I know it's scary. I know the federal government has made it really fucking scary over the last 20 years. But, right, you look at things like Kubernetes, you look at things like some of the service meshes out there, right? It's a lot easier to do that without affecting your additional applications today, right? You don't have to talk to your devs and make a shitload of code changes that will never happen because you don't have money to make those changes in production. And, right, they're all in sustainment mode and they don't have real budgets, so they don't have real developers anymore, right? This can be done at a layer outside of them. But at that point, we start getting full visibility as to here's the services, here's the endpoints, here's who they're supposed to talk to. And immediately when they start talking to somebody else and the creative developers internally, like myself or Justin Richer, that start calling an API because we know it from 3 projects ago, we get caught real freaking quick, right? That's our job moving forward. Least privilege, policy-based, integrity of security assets, right? That's all stuff we've done from an identity perspective for a long time, moving quickly into the assets. Strong authentication, right? Traditionally, that's username and password. No giggles, come on. Right, we're all, I think, if anyone here is not moving to MFA, just find a new org to work for, please. Like, at this point, if people are still questioning you on that, just get out. They're doomed. I know we're all martyrs in this world of identity, but it's not worth the fight. And then the real thing that is number 7 on this, and what I'm going to drill into, is we've all had configuration management databases. We've all had 7 different implementations over our careers of configuration management databases that have never been fully populated. But guess what? That's the metadata to make your authorization decisions, and driving that into your organizations and processes to actually make intelligent decisions has to happen. The good news is, if you're moving towards a DevSecOps world, that can literally be embedded inside of a Git repository, just like a code owner's for a production change approval. So you're not asking them to dynamically update anything or go to a shitty interface from the time when the dancing hamster websites were cool, right? It's literally, you're already in the code. What is it? Why is it approved? And when that's bundled and deployed, just use your APIs of your deployment platform, whether that's Kube or AWS or GCP or Azure, to tell you where those services are actually running, right? And that in itself, and having that as a metadata within your organization to make those decisions, sure makes figuring out what's supposed to talk to each other a lot easier, and why, and when it changes, and who approved that change. Because if you do it wrong, we're going to be back to firewall ACLs, which means we're just going to star port 80 and 443 again pretty quick. Also, I would say, look at your software supply chains, right? In identity, I have made some really bad comments in the past, but I still think they're true, that we tend to live 2 to 3 years behind most of the developers in our organizations. And the things that we think are the cool shit, they're already bored by. But why do we just put policies on applications and push them into productions without knowing their history and provenance and when they were approved and who approved them and why they're there, and if the ones that are in production are actually the same ones that are in our source code repository? Right? That shit should happen. It's not hard. We just have to plan for it. Same way, if anyone's ever been in a fun auditing situation where the auditors say, why does that person have that access in production? You go, I got a SailPoint log that says Joe approved it on Tuesday the 13th. Well, why did it even get to Joe to be able to approve it? I don't know. I have no freaking clue what code was in production that day. I don't know what if statement drove it down that path versus this path, right? The auditors are getting smart. They're starting to ask those questions of what code was in production that day, not just who did the approval, right? And things like Salsa give us that ability to say with levels of assurance what is in prod, why, where, when, and how. And as we start moving these things away from all of our policies from embedded in the applications and controlled by our identity and access management teams, the type of artifacts they're going to look for as to why things are the way they have been. So that came out really ugly. I apologize. So 5 pillars of zero trust. These are kind of my top 3 to 4 in each pillar of what you can go back and talk to your organizations Monday. No one's going to work tomorrow. About how to start moving identity forward to make your security operations better and more easier to manage as you move towards the 45,000 SaaS vendors that people put on a credit card a day, right? Federation first architecture. I'm trying to find my time. Shit. All right, I will speed through. This is what happens to me, right? Federation first. Please stop creating accounts for your contractors, your business partners. I love SecZeta. They have a great product, but let's look to federating and putting the risk of those people being employed by those organizations back where it belongs. Force MFA, as I said, if it's a discussion, just get out. Privilege management, separation of duties, we're still struggling to shit everywhere for it, but more importantly on the DevSecOps side as well as the cloud provider side, good luck managing IAM roles in AWS. Oh, and then you've got a second and third cloud now. It's a shit show, but please pay attention. Make your existing EDR and MDM tools visible, right? They're stuck in databases somewhere. Make them easier to query. Get that done ASAP. Stop believing there's a corporate network. Everything's on the internet. And then the biggest thing is really encrypt, automate, and orchestrate all the things. More than happy to dig into more of these. And then from my perspective, what's next? If we start getting this right and start pulling these things together, things like shared signal and events with the CAPE protocols and risk protocols that we've heard a ton about this week will get easy. We will know where those points of trust are defined, why services are talking to each other, and then be able to say, I federated over to that other organization. My person is downloading 5,000 documents. That's not good. Kill their shit right now, please. We can't do that today. How much data is in Salesforce that we have no visibility as to what people are doing unless we're pulling the logs from the back end, and that'll be looked at a week later if we're lucky. And then the other one was multilateral federations. Let's stop manually managing SAML metadata and soon-to-be OID set of federation metadata and having those, oh shit, the cert's expiring in 2 weeks phone calls that we're trying to get all of our business providers to update and fix. So look towards EduGain and In Common. Crazy that I think the education space is way the frick ahead of the rest of us. And then this is me, this is us. Let's go fix this shit, because I'm tired.
Matt, thank you very much. We appreciate it. I'm sorry, folks, we do not have time for Q&A on this one, so make note of Matt's contact information. Look for him at the party tonight, buy him a drink.
Or I'll be in the hall.
Yeah. Thank you all for
y'all.
coming.